So, this is what we do to start it off. Well, first I have to say, welcome back to Next Stage Podcast, everyone. I'm very enthusiastic. Or, welcome back to Next Stage Podcast, everyone. I want to be dramatic about it.
I like both of them.
Maybe I'll just,
welcome back to Next Stage.
Oh, you got a mashup.
Yeah.
Doing a mashup here. Well, I do this chime to start us off.
Nice.
And we're in. All right, everybody, we have James Clarke from Monte Luna here in the studio, all the way from Austin, Texas.
Austin, Texas.
James Clarke is guitar player, singer of Monte Luna. They are a two-piece still just a two-piece?
Yes, just a two-piece.
Two-piece, guitar and drums, and you have a massive rig that makes it sound heavier than just a guitar. Get that low end in there. So Monte Luna is a project that you started when you moved down to Austin. How many years ago was that?
That's going to be 4 years in August. So 4 years ago, I kind of moved out of this wonderful area, and I was going to be building farms, aquaponics farms down in Buda.
Whoa.
And yeah, so that was really cool. And I did that with a good friend of mine, actually from this area. And I went down there with some hopes and dreams, and I played some music up here and got to meet all of you, and I was really loving the music community. And this opportunity to move to Austin, I just wanted to jump back into music and to be a part of something that was like very phenomenal. And I fortunately made it my way down there, and the farm thing worked out, and I worked there for a long time.
Yeah.
And I met my drummer Phil, funny enough, through Craigslist. Like,
is that common down there? Do like a lot of people put postings up for like looking for musicians, or are there like papers or like newspapers that people post in, or do you call posting in newspapers? I don't know.
That was a question that I had myself.
Like, how did you get in? How did you get in Austin? Like, what was it like when you moved from Connecticut down there for this farming thing, right? And then where did you start looking for musicians?
So when I started to really want to do this again, I had no idea. And I think I was just as like lost in the woods as anybody would be moving to a new place.
Is there woods or is it desert?
Lost in the flat land.
Lost in the bad lands.
But I kind of had this idea that I would try to find someone. And so I started going out and seeing what kind of music was up. And I found this awesome place called The Lost Well in Austin, Texas. And
found the Lost Well.
So I found this Lost Well. I was looking for it forever.
Did you tell anybody about it?
No, dude. It's
good. Keep it secret.
Yeah, I got to keep it secret and safe.
We won't tell anybody either.
Yeah,
no one here.
Nobody tells anybody.
Just don't talk about the Lost Well.
Yeah, we don't talk about it anymore.
So you found the found well.
Yeah,
the not secret well.
The not so secret well. I went there and I saw this really awesome show, which now consists of these band members from these then active bands, now defunct. But they've all done really awesome stuff since then.
Mm-hmm. What, they were from other bands and came together for this particular show you saw?
No, they were doing those projects, and since then they've kind of dissipated.
So it was a show where many bands were playing?
Yeah.
And okay. I see what you
on
mean.
A whim, I just went to a show that I thought sounded really cool. It was my friends in what was Old and Ill, Thunder Keef, still active, and then Way the Buffalo. And I went there, and the quality of music to me was amazing. So I thought that
there's hope.
There's hope. Yeah, it was like one of those moments where I was like, oh my God, this music is insane. And like there's people here, and they love this. And so I jumped right in, and I didn't even know how to reach out. But like I started asking a few people around the Lost Well, and things really didn't come to fruition with a lot of the reach outs. And I just didn't feel comfortable with it. So I went online and I said something along the lines of, looking for a drummer, must like X and Y and all these
X and
things.
Y, I don't know them.
Yeah, X and Y, they're a great band.
Great Coldplay album.
I know that Phil.
Is there such a thing as a great Coldplay album? Because I haven't. You're making stuff up over there.
Yeah, just like X and Y.
Yeah, Tales from the Lost Well over here.
Tales from the Crypt, my dude. But Phil, I reached out to him, and he said when I met him at the Lost Well, like a little while later, to discuss actually playing music, and he was like, "Well, I saw that you put Shrine Builder on there, and for anyone not familiar with Shrine Builder, it's a super group between the members of the Melvins and Neurosis and Sleep, and then Wino from Vitus, and So not many people have really heard of it, and it piqued his interest, and so we started jamming, and one thing led to another, and we just kind of went for it because he was looking for something that I was as well, and I think creatively, like, I couldn't ask for a better drummer. I mean, Phil is a phenomenal musician. He's recorded at Abbey Road Studios. He's
wow.
He's like one of my best friends, and I'm insanely thankful to have him as a drummer.
Yeah, so he was very like he had paid his dues for a while.
He has paid his dues, yeah.
Before going in. Now I wonder just to backtrack a little bit, when you're saying you've heard about the show at the Lost Well, what made you want to go to that show? Did you see like a flyer? What drew you in? Because I always wonder what makes people want to go to a show. And you were new in town, moved down there, and like, how did you end up there? What made you think there's going to be cool music here?
I think what drew me there was I was looking online for, heavy doom psychedelic music, and it kind of went down this rabbit hole of where to go. And I used Facebook.
Yeah.
I used Facebook and found
Facebook's events do work.
So Facebook's events, I think, are part. Okay, so that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah. Oh, we've got a lot of time to get into all
plenty
this.
of time.
I just wanted to know from that inception of when you moved down there, you found this place that you thought was really cool because you said, "Oh, there should be cool music," and like.
Yeah. I think what drew me to it was I looked at it and I looked at the events and I looked at the bands, and then I just started breaking it apart. And I saw that a lot of these bands had similar interests in the music that I wanted to play.
Okay.
And then when I went there, it was great. It was like this perfect bar for somebody like me.
Expecting.
Yeah, it was exactly what I would hope a metal bar in Austin, Texas would be. And the Lost Well is amazing. And Cello, the guy that owns it, Marcello, he had this place downtown called Lovejoy's, and it's just kind of a continuation of this beautiful metal scene that is hard, second to none. It's amazing what these people are doing and how much they care about each other in the community.
Yeah, and that gave you the inspiration to say, I can get involved in this. And then that's when you did the outreach. So like, how do I get somebody to get with me to get on stage at this place?
Yeah.
And then
I was like, I want to be on that stage. And so Phil was very, he's like a country.
What's his last name? Are we allowed to say? Or
Phil Hook.
Phil Hook.
Yep.
So shout out to Phil Hook.
Yeah, absolutely. But he's done all sorts of Texas red dirt music, and
What's red dirt music?
Red dirt music is like.
I mean, like the red dirt that's like in Georgia. Like, does it have anything to do with that?
Outlaw country-ish. So Phil, that's the
all
world.
been listening to for like a long time. So.
And that's what Phil does for a living. He drums and he gigs out for these guys, and he loves it. But it pays his bills. But his heart, he grew up in Indianapolis, and he's a metal drummer, and he grew up with a lot of our homies up there, Apostle Solitude. Coffin Worm and all the guys out of Indianapolis, and in Indianapolis it's a really big metal community as well. So he wanted to do something that he could not be embarrassed about showing his friends. Honestly, is what he said. It's just like he would go down to Texas and play these shows, and he'd go back up to Naptown and be like, "Oh man, I hope they don't know what kind of band I'm in right now. These guys are doing the shuffle and
still trying to impress the guys from back home.
Yeah, of course, because they're all awesome dudes. So. Yeah.
You always want the people that are your friends from whatever period to like dig what you're doing. Like
absolutely, take a lot of pride, and he's a prideful musician, and I think that he loves to do. There's one thing that he has to separate, and it's that the life of a musician where you make your
pay your
rent, if you will. Yeah, pay your rent with your music. Not every gig is going to be something that you're going to love to do.
Yeah,
and that's a hard part that comes with being a musician. Is there's a lot of things that we don't want to do.
Yeah,
and even in projects that you love, there's tons of stuff you don't want to do.
Yeah,
and that's just part about it. I think it's part about any job, really. Tons of stuff that you don't want to do all the time.
Yeah, there's this unfortunate monetization that has to happen for it to be sustaining. But it's probably, I'm sure you would agree that like the juice is worth the squeeze in those
Yes.
situations where it's
Yes.
like you could be doing something a lot worse to be
Totally.
paying those bills. So when you guys got together, like how did that happen? Like he responded to an ad that you put
Yeah.
up, or did you find him and say like, "Hey, would you be
Yeah.
interested?" Or how
Yeah.
did he contact you? And what was like the first meeting and/or practice?
Totally.
Did you meet at a restaurant
Yeah.
and coffee and see like, is this guy gonna murder me, or
Yeah.
can we go and jam, or is he gonna throw me in the lost well, or?
For sure. Yeah, as I kind of alluded
Sorry,
to
Phil. I don't want
earlier.
to assume that you're a serial killer.
No, he's
I know nothing
he's not.
about you. I've met you, and you're very generously nice and complimentary.
He
and
didn't
I love
kill you.
Yeah, not yet. Unless you
Yeah.
brought him with you. He's waiting in the car.
He's right there. We went to the Lost Well, and that's kind of like another reinforcement for the whole love for the Lost Well. It's like we just didn't know what to expect, so we're like, let's go grab a beer and talk about music.
Yeah.
And if it works, then we'll set a practice. And so we went and we had a great time and hung out. And after that, set up a practice like less than a week later, and we started jamming.
Did you have a space, or did he have a space? Where did you guys practice? Do you have to
We
rent a
ended up
space?
practicing, I think for the first time, we rented this place called The Space.
Oh,
Yeah.
Pretty handy name.
Yeah, it's on Manchac down south in Austin. And the place was really nice. And we still use it, honestly, because he lives now in Wimberley, which is about 2 hours away.
oh,
Or maybe not. That's not true. Probably about 45 minutes or so.
oh! Wow, that's a significant
yeah,
difference.
huge difference.
Is it? Well, you're probably doing math for traffic or something. I'm just going to
yeah,
give you that.
that
yeah.
sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, it was-
traffic math. If you lived
Traffic
in
math.
Austin, you would understand. You gotta do that traffic
So,
math.
so we met at the Space and we started playing, and it was just one of those things where it just clicked. You know,
Yeah.
like we're both very rhythm. I would say that I'm much more of a bassist than a guitarist in a sense that I am generally going towards the rhythm and trying to find something and playing with Phil. And that was another thing that we kind of vibed on is that we play off of each other and we can kind of understand each other really well without speaking anything. And that was the basis of the band. And then for a while, we thought that we needed somebody else. And we had a bassist for maybe about a year. His name was Chris, and it just didn't work out. And more power to him doing his thing. But at
Was that like a conflict? He had something else he wanted to do, or just the sound wasn't the
I just
same
don't
with the
think
bass
it-
player?
No, I just don't think he had his heart into it like
Yeah.
we did, and it just wasn't going to work out. And I'm sure he could feel it, and we could feel it, and it just didn't pan out the way
Yeah.
we thought it was. And we, at that time too, we really were like, all right, yeah, we'll be a 3-piece band, and everything's gonna be normal. And we had him come and play bass and do vocals on the Hound on the EP that we released with him. And we thought that was going to work, and like a show later, he was just like, nah, I don't know if I can do this. And
Yeah.
he had a kid, so you got to do what you got to do, man. In life,
Absolutely. If the same enthusiasm isn't there amongst everybody, you never want to keep somebody in something that they're not totally feeling, because then it
Totally.
feels an obligation. You're better off keeping the vibe that works.
Yes.
And were there songs originally when you and Phil jammed, or like did you just get together and riff on stuff and just see what happens? Did you have any kind of construct of like, here, these are some things I'm kicking around, or was it very like, you got drums, I got guitar, let's see what happens?
So I think there's maybe like 2 songs that we never really used that started because it was leftover stuff from Chronoscope, and I
Okay.
was like, you know what, I'm just gonna kick these riffs in.
For anyone who's listening, Chronoscope was James's original band up here in Connecticut. Sorry,
Yes.
just doing a little bit of
No, I like it.
backstory
Yeah.
to explain that. So
Yeah.
you left for
Yeah.
Austin. The Chronoscope was the band that you had
Yes.
now. So you had a few leftovers from that
Yeah.
bringing down for that
and
first
I just
jam with
wanted to
Phil.
give it a feel, and so I think that one of them even turned out to be, I don't even remember what was on the EP for the Hound. I'm a terrible. It's been so long, dear.
Well, everybody who's listening
Yeah.
knows, so it's cool.
Yeah, they'll figure it out. But
They're
if you go
all
on the page and you
The
go,
Hound,
you go to the
by
Hound
Monte
EP,
Luna, yeah.
then the song that's not called the Hound is probably one of the original songs from Chronoscope.
Yeah.
Like,
So you had
that
some
we never
ideas
used.
coming into the first practice that
Yeah.
you were able to kind of give him some direction, and then
Yeah.
it
And
just
with that-
felt right.
yeah, with that we kind of got a feel for what we wanted to do together, and playing off of that, we kind of felt like we could jam whatever we wanted, and we understood, and we get good coordination and timing and pacing with each other. And being a two-piece band, we have a lot of space. So our idea was to try to fill as much space as possible with what we have, and that doesn't necessarily mean constant noise, but it's just how to fill it appropriately.
Yeah.
Using two people and using very limited resources. And that's
you have
kind
to
of
rethink a little bit.
It's kind of changes the whole idea of a lot of things. And like song structures can't be as open, and they can be, but it's a different sort of openness than, say, a three-piece band or so, where you can kind of give that guitarist the freedom to express themselves in any direction that they want to. And we don't have that freedom as directly as a lot of other bands do. So we have to figure out other ways to have that freedom, whether it be, through feedback or through, maybe like delay pedal, just changing the tempos and everything like that. There's all sorts of ways we do it, but it's just been really fun to try to figure out how to keep it interesting and have it be fun still.
Yeah, I see what you mean with the three-piece. It's kind of like, well, two can be locked in and one can kind of let loose a little bit, and then you can come back, and then, or she, whatever, doesn't. And you can not going to assume genders.
Yeah, and you can change your songs off of that much smoother than if you kind of just come to this halt between two people and then shift that direction. If you have a three-person band, you can give that segue moment where somebody's doing something that doesn't seem like it fits, and then all of a sudden the whole piece turns into that direction, or you go in a completely different direction.
Or you can arrange, this person dropped out, and then just these two, and then this, and then you can build dynamics differently. Yeah. So were there any like two-piece bands that you were looking at as inspiration at the time, or did you just kind of say, let's just slog through this on our own? Did you look at any other bands and see what are they doing?
So I've been really
like
inspired.
Royal Blood, or
for sure, I've been really inspired by Big Business, and they, to me, were one of the greatest two-piece bands that I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. And they have such good chemistry, and they fill space very well, and they're both just very prolific musicians.
What's their setup? Is it drum or guitar?
Drum and bass, and then also keyboard. So he'll play bass and then switch out with
Does
keyboard.
He loop the bass, or you don't know what he does exactly?
He does loop the bass for certain effects, and he'll also do cool vocal loops. And,
it's like a Geddy Lee thing. Doesn't Geddy Lee split between keys and bass?
Yeah, but I guess not in the same way. He'll either usually do a bass, or he'll take that whole rig. He'll use his rig to plug in the keyboard. Okay, so it sounds awesome.
Running through effects.
Yeah. So it sounds really heavy and really awesome. But Big Business inspired me locally. This band Mountain of Smoke was really cool to see when we were starting out. I just happened to see them. I think probably one of my second shows in Austin was this band Mountain of Smoke, and they were a two-piece band. They still are active, and Brooks and PJ are just insane musicians, and it blew me away at how much power two people could do. So while Monte Luna was a three-piece at the time, and then when Chris split, after seeing Mountain of Smoke a few times, Phil and I really had no issue being a two-piece and saying, we really don't want a bassist. We don't want to do this anymore. We are the band. That's cool. Like, that is our project, and we can kind of do at this point whatever we want with it artistically, and people can come and go, and that's fine, but we are Monte Luna. And that's kind of how we looked at it from that point when we lost Chris, was we're going to carry on. We have a show like a couple weeks later, and then our first time at the Lost Well was going to be in less than a month or so. So
had you played a few shows with Chris before this point?
Yeah. Like I said, we had the whole EP, and we were ready to start kicking butt. And
what was the first show? Let's hear about the first show. Was Chris in? Was it a two-piece at the first show, or was Chris in on the first show?
Chris was in on the first show.
Okay.
And our first show.
So let us know what that was about. How was the first show?
Interestingly cringy. It was at the Gold Crown, I think, in San Marcos. And I remember showing up there.
How'd you book the show? Was it just like,
it was Chris.
Hey, here, let's play here? Did you have a demo or anything? Did you need a demo to get in?
Chris knew. I mean, that's kind of like what he was doing too, and he was real pumped about it. for a little while was like he was like, all right, well I got these connects and we'll do this cool stuff. And
okay, so he was
like,
he from Austin or like, had been there longer?
Yeah,
or
he's
what?
definitely had been there longer, and he knew he played.
So he knew
in some
ways to
bands.
get you hooked up with this
and
venue
so we thought,
or whatever.
cool, like this guy's, he seemed to be into it at the time, and it's cool and whatever. And so we played this show in San Marcos, and it was cringy to me, I guess. And it was just kind of sketchy, and I kind of got that vibe.
What, the venue was sketchy?
The people in the venue. And
in what way? Like just like the wrong kind of people? Like, what do you mean? Like
I would say so. Yeah. I would say it was like one of those things where you're playing,
like, what does a metal band think is sketchy? I don't know if you consider yourself a metal band or a rock band or what you consider.
Yeah, I guess what I would say is sketchy is like when you definitely know that there are people there that are probably super into like hard drugs, and you look around the room and you're like, okay,
they're there for another reason.
All right, yeah, for sure. And I was really surprised because it was San Marcos, and I was like, oh, this is kind of a young city, blah blah blah. But it was kind of a weird place to play, and I was not enthused about it. And then also, like, the PA was like a kid's toy. And it was, yeah, and they had troubles, like, using, I don't know,
it's like Radio
anything,
Shack.
really. Yeah, I remember when we got on the stage and we were doing, like, a mic check for the vocals, I was checking in, and it was just, like, cutting in and out, and he was like, all right, don't worry, hold on. And I was like, hey, can you just put, like, a tad bit of reverb on there? And he's like, no, nothing's working, but I'll get it in a minute. Don't worry. And we had to set up our cabs really weird. He wanted them to like not blast out, but like blast sideways, and it sounded really strange. It was the strangest
number
setup.
Of wonky elements.
A number of wonky elements that started building up.
Yeah.
And I think we played with our friends who were still friends with Tarantula Mountain. That was the first time we met them, and they were really nice. So like nothing against the other bands, but it was just a strange first experience, and like I definitely remember Phil and I, after that show, being like, oh, if this is how it's going to be, then we need to be more careful doing things. And so, we played a few more shows with Chris, and they were what they were. And then he left the band. And then we very shortly after played the Lost Well for the first time.
As a two-piece.
As a two-piece with our friends, Witch Crier, and we played with this band called Castle. Mm-hmm. And everybody was really awesome, and the show was great, and it was well attended, and that was kind of like I feel like very much so that was really the first time that we were.
That was the true first Monte Luna show.
That was the true first, because the rest were like
still
kind of like coming up things. Like you all, every band goes through their growing pains and has to play shows that they would much rather stay at home. And,
but if you didn't play those shows, you would just stay at home, and then you'd be doing nothing.
You'd be doing nothing, and then you wouldn't even say that you played those shows. And that's half the fun, is talking to your musician friends about like how terrible these shows were.
So when you went to being a two-piece, what did you think was the most important thing to focus on when you had to pare it down that much? Was there something that you honed in? I was like, this is the thing to focus on, or how did you figure out how to guide the music when it was just the two of you?
I think what we focused on was having fun more, because and I know that sounds cliche, I guess, but at that point we were tired of not feeling it as much and like not being as pumped about playing, and we were like, dude, we're doing this purely out of fun. Like, let's just have fun with it. If it's not fun, it's not gonna happen. But also we need some cohesive music as well, so like it wouldn't be fun to us otherwise. So it's not that fun defines as complete jazz free will, but like we
you gotta know that you're killing it.
Yeah, we gotta know that we like it, and we're doing well, and we're killing it and having fun. So I think the hardest thing has always been to try to make sure that we are like very fluid with our timing. And that's always going to be the hardest thing for us, because it just, no matter how many times you play with somebody, I don't think you can ever fully predict what somebody will do. Because there's always in the back of my mind, like, I'm going to run these predictable within what we've kind of engaged with before. Like we have a lot of free moments and free jams, even live, we do a lot of free moments, and it's just so Phil and I can have some fun and like.
Well, that creates inspiration and also a reason to see you live because it's not the album.
Yeah, you make it something unique. I love bands that sound a little different live because, well, I've already got the record. I don't want to hear that louder. I could just stay home. Exactly. Yeah, and that's what we always try to do something like that so that people want to see us live because if you see Monte Luna live, it's going to be a different experience than if you see us, or if you listen to our album, I should say.
Right.
And that's what we always wanted to do, and so that's important. Like we do parts live that we don't do on the album at all. And the only way you're going to hear the full song is to see us live or something like that. And so we just kind of try to make sure that we are keeping a focus and keeping a movement before like really worrying about.
So it's establishing a vibe, and that's like the feel of you guys playing together is the most important element that's being put across.
Yeah.
So you did a bunch of you did shows together as a 2-piece, and then like when did the record deal thing happen? Because let's talk about the label that you're on.
For sure.
And like how did you go from like first show at the missing lost mystery well, whatever
the mystery well
that we will not speak of hereafter, to like you're on a record label in Italy, right?
Yes. Yeah.
What happened there? How did that go? How did that go down?
So okay, so long story short then, because this is it was kind of amazing to even myself to for this to happen was just crazy. And so we had went into the studio after. So the timeline really, and it all happened as quickly as this was. Chris left the band in November-ish, I want to say, or that either that or that was the time that we were playing the Well, and so everything was happening. By January, we were pumped about getting in the studio. So January, we wanted to do this. Our friend Tommy Munter out of San Antonio runs this studio called Matador, and him and Phil have done some awesome stuff together, and I trusted them to understand what we need and Phil to find somebody that we can work with. And using their experience, we went into the studio in February and wrote that first album with the songs that Phil and I had been working on.
Let people know what the name of the first album, the first release is called.
Monte Luna. Yeah. So yeah, self-titled. And it just kind of went really quickly. That was such a smooth studio time. We had, I think, 3 days, 24 hours each day to do it. And we went in there and we laid down 72 minutes of music, and it was all really prepared. Wow. And we did that, and then maybe we did a few days afterwards of like post-production stuff.
Some overdubs here and there.
Some overdubs.
Yeah, a little feedback.
But really, the whole meat and potatoes of the entire first album was done in 3 days live with no click track or anything. We just did it all fluid. I was in the room.
It's amazing you had that connection so soon to be able to do that.
It was crazy. It was, and we wrote the entire album. I mean, I think we were toying around with one song, Inverted Mountain, when Chris was there. Mm-hmm. Because I remember I saw him playing that riff on some video at some other place, and I was like, I don't know. I think I wrote that one. I know I did, but it's all right because we have it out. And,
yeah.
That's just life.
So this record was recorded, and it's kind of like I don't want to say like frenzy, but it seems like a very quick, short period of time. Like, did this record, what did you expect from it? Like, what did you just want to get your stuff down to sell merch at shows, or what were you thinking about when you were making this thing? Like, we just have to capture what we're doing. Or
honestly, there was such a clarity with the first album of I feel like it just all came together. Like, we were able to write all this music in such a short time, and it just clicked with both of us, and we were like, this is what we want to do. This is the concept we want to do. I mean, the first album is a concept album revolving around the idea that we, as humans, fear the unknown, and there's a lot of repeating cycles in our lives that we see, whether it be an actual, we make the same mistakes again over and over, or we do the same thing every day over and over again. It's just kind of this repetitious life that we live. It can be positive or negative, really. Mm-hmm. But it was just that idea. And Phil and
I
I
guess
just
even longer term history, people
Yeah.
live certain types of life that you can repeat the same mistakes that somebody else had made.
Yeah.
You know, it's not necessarily, or same cycles. I wouldn't say, as you said, not mistakes.
right.
But there are certain stories that are told over and over
Yes.
again, and you can relate to them even though they're thousands of years old.
Totally. And so we went into this idea and this whole recording thing with a very clear vision of what that first album, it was like, just we knew this is the music that we wanted to do, and we wanted to make like a 72-minute album, and we wanted to make it, we had this whole vision from the beginning, was that it was going to be double vinyl, really long, like 6 songs maybe. I think originally it was 5, but we cut Nameless City into The Burning of Elohim and Nameless City, just for, I want to say, I forget who was the person that convinced us, but they were like, you should probably do this.
Yeah.
And we said, all right, that was about as compromising as we got on the entire album.
Right,
most
it
of
was pretty much your vision from start to finish.
Yeah, that's as compromised as we got, just out of, I think we were trying to let people sample the album, and we couldn't. We had no tangible. Yeah, we had no song that was under, at that time, like 12 minutes.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh gosh, we have to figure out something that we can give people. So we did it, and we didn't really have any fear, and we didn't really care what people said or whatever. And when we put it out, we had CDs and tapes, and we had like 50 tapes and 100 CDs, and our mentality has always been very similar to the Melvins, which is like and also our friends Destroyer of Light, who taught me a great deal about music and the industry and everything, is that make something that people want and make something that's exclusive, because those people are going to eat it up. And when you make something like a CD that's only 100 copies, or you make a tape that's 25 of this color variety and 25 of the other, and then I'm telling
unique
people
about it.
Yeah, and we're not gonna remake these tapes. We're not gonna press them again. This is it. If you got a tape, you got a tape.
How'd you make them all? Would you go through like a service, or like when you
CDs,
got the recording made? Did you get the masters and then go and distribute them? Like, how did you make all of these different versions?
Yeah. So first we got the recordings, and then we sent the recordings to Chris Fielding of the band Conan from the UK, and Conan is a phenomenal band.
How did you guys know them? Was it somebody you just hooked up? How did you?
They
send
had
music
been on
to
my
them?
radar for a long time. I really dug them. Our friends in Austin knew them, and so I felt comfortable being in part of the scene, just to be like, all right, well, you know what? They are really nice guys. I can reach out to them. They're human beings, and they have a recording studio, and I want them to master my album because I love their music, and I think that they will either say no is the worst case scenario, or they'll
What's the risk?
quote me a price that I can't pay. And they were really reasonable and awesome dudes. And so they mastered it. And I think Chris did a phenomenal job doing his job. And we all came together to make this really cool album. And so I went, after I got the masters, and I took it to CD Baby, I think. Yeah. And I made like 100 copies of the album on CD. And it was a gatefold. We had gatefold art by Eric, this dude that does Mont Doom designs, and he did beautiful artwork for the album. And we made 100 CDs, and we made 50 tapes of 25 of each color from this place called Cryptic Carousel out of New York. And then I took that, and we had an album release at the Lost Well with our friends in Destroyer of Light and Forebode, I want to say. No, Rippus. And it was cool. And that was, so at that point, we were unsigned still. And it was just like, oh, cool, we released our album.
Did your first album, got it out.
Got our first
to
album.
get it to the community, the local people. It was like, here, this is where I started getting interested in the music. I've met Phil here to do this meeting. Now we have a record to release to everybody. Like that, it's just like incrementing growth,
and
to
so
do it that way. And then that was like top of the heap. We did it.
Yeah, it hit us at that point, and we were like, oh, that's really cool. Like we did this. Things are gonna be pretty cool. And we started getting the reviews in, and then they were really cool. And that was the part, because it started slow. And I think this is something that I've learned that we're going to do a little different this time. we didn't have any PR going into this. And realistically, as much as you want to say that the music business should be like, yeah, and we should all not pay anything and bleep that and this and that. But like, really, end of the day, there's a lot of money up front that you have to pay as a musician to be a musician. And PR is expensive. And we didn't have that, you know, and we didn't also have that mindset where we're like, oh, we need PR. Yeah, we need PR. You know, we're a real gun-toting band. We have to do these things, and so PR is part of it. How else are you gonna get these demos and stuff and these your songs or what have you, whatever level of release you're doing, you need to be able to get these to the right people in the appropriate way. And we didn't have that, and so it was just by fortune that we had a lot of backdoor reviews that came through to the right people. And I sent our tape off to this dude JJ that runs the Obelisk, and he dug it, and I think he gave us one of the most respectable reviews ever, which was like, it's going to be hard to get into this band, I think, because of the content, but when you start digesting it, you're really going to see that it's awesome stuff. Mm-hmm. And I really appreciated him doing that. And then we met this guy, Aaron, who runs this page, The Sludge Lord, and he loved us.
Yeah.
Like, phenomenal.
Met him at a show or met him where? How'd you meet him?
I met him on the internet. He runs this page. He's from the UK.
Okay. So you put your stuff up online and people were reaching out to you, or like how were they getting your content?
I was posting, honestly, through Facebook on this like forum. Mm-hmm. It's like this big group forum for heavy music. Yeah. And I was like, hey, here's our album, check it out. And then I posted like, hey, here's our album, or review it or whatever. And then people started taking it and doing this and that. And that's really how it circulated. That's how we got a
And so these reviews started coming in through this, pushing it into this online community that you felt would probably appreciate.
Yeah, people started tagging us, and like I would reach out to certain people and be like, hey, check it out. I did this album. Yeah. I never really did anything too crazy. I never like spammed people's stuff. I was just like, this is
it's honestly putting your product. I mean, how did the record label get a hold of it? How did they approach you? What
happened was Aaron loved us, and he was like, I want to do an interview with you guys, and like, you guys are awesome. He gave us like best of the month then, and I think he gave us best undiscovered artist kind of thing for 2017. And at that point, he said, he contacted me. And he was like, you guys are awesome. Like, I want to see you guys do great things. Let me gun for you. And I said, yeah, cool. That sounds awesome. Please do it.
Yeah.
Because that was a really cool.
Take it and run, man.
Yeah,
run wherever you're going to run with it.
Take that CD and go to somewhere cool. And he gave it to Argonauta Records. Okay. And Argonauta Records are being our label now. They picked us up and signed us to a record deal. And
what was it like getting that like information? That did they email you? Did they call you? How did they contact you?
Right in the modern day, it was through Facebook. It's crazy to think about.
So they sent you a Facebook message like it was like, boop. Would you like to be on a label? Like, what did they say? What did you think at that time? What was that like to get that message?
So when I got that message, I was like, yeah, okay.
Did you think it was like nonsense?
I thought it was. I thought he was just like, oh yeah, okay, dude, yeah, you'll fund my album to put it on vinyl. And then I did research on it, and I was like, oh, these guys are legit. Yeah. Like, they've released some of our friends. Like,
do you have the Continuum Transfunction now?
Yeah.
I've just referenced a couple times recently.
I don't know why. How often are you
watching Do Where's My Car, man?
Yeah. Not enough.
Not enough, my friend.
Not enough.
So I did a little bit of research to make sure that they were legit, and they were. And I talked to some of our friends in Duel, and I talked to some of our friends in Forming the Void who were on that label, because I looked through their back catalog, and they had released one of my favorite albums, like their first album. And I was just kind of excited at that point, but I was very stern about what the rights are. And I think that as musicians, everybody has to be very aware of what their rights are. Mm-hmm. And so we made this contract with specific rights only governing towards vinyl, because I still think that we are...
So they don't own the masters, only the distribution rights? Like, how does that work? What does that mean when you say be very specific about the deal? What does that mean?
Because we were a young band, and because we are a young band, I didn't want to give too much away, because this is still like our livelihood and I you know, as it's not realistic to say that you make a ton of money on your digital rights, but at the same time, at the level that we are still, I would consider, is that any sort of money like this that we can pump back into getting t-shirts, getting merch, doing cool stuff,
going
is
on
very
tour,
important.
getting gear. Like there's all these things
like,
that you have to support as a band. That's not
and
just...
so like at that point, it was something where I was like, well, it's cool that you guys want to make money off of us, but I need to be careful of what I give you. Mm-hmm. And so what your purpose is to do vinyl, because we can do tape and we can do CD ourselves. And I totally get that. And like, I wanted to make sure that what we were doing was
still protecting assets, if you will.
Protecting our baby, because this is a young band. We don't want to get taken advantage of.
Yeah.
So we made that contract with that in mind.
It's pretty smart to like think that, you know. It's
because
I would imagine it's easy to get swept away with the idea of like, I'm getting a record. You're like, because
there's
do
a
what
lot
you need to do.
At that point, there was a couple offers on the table, and we were kind of like, okay, what do we do? What do we do? And certain people wanted different things, and then certain people had different expectations of us that at the time we couldn't really like fulfill. Like we still needed some time to be able to tour. Like we needed a little bit of time before we went on that first tour. So we couldn't say yes to that immediately, which is what it is. But it's just kind of how it panned out, man. And so we got our album, and we had another album release, in August. That was our vinyl release, and that went over really well. And it was cool to have these staggered releases. Like we didn't, even when I came up here last time and played in Danbury, we didn't have the vinyl. Yeah. We were kind of preparing for that. And then when we came home, we did the vinyl, and the vinyl was out, and it was like, here we go. Right. It's like rebreathing life into that album again. And so we felt that we could, delay a little bit, because really it's one thing to try to push out so much music, and then it's another to work your music the best you can. A lot of our friends tour on one album for a while, and there's no real shame. And while people outside of that world want to see more content from these people, you have to give that album to as much of an audience as you can. Right. So sometimes it takes 2 years to tour for that album.
So you mean like bringing it to new markets? Is that the reason to do that? Is
so
to get the content out to new markets and be able to see like who's interested in this in other parts of the country?
Exactly. Like I don't think it was intentionally our plan to do that at first, but it kind of happened that way. Like I was hoping to have it all one and done. I didn't think we were really going to get a vinyl, so it wasn't even a thing that I considered. And we were already working on the new stuff then, and then we just delayed it for so long because we had obligations to put out for this album, because you can't, I can't just not tour on it, and I can't not fulfill my obligations as a musician to a contract. Yeah. Because there are obligations, and internally you should want this as a musician. You should want to, once you get signed, be like, okay, I'm gonna sell the life out of all that vinyl that you have. They have 200 vinyl in Europe, we have 100 in the US. We're down to like 25. I know that they've sent restocks here, so I don't know how much they have left, but we're really low.
That's good. That means it's moving.
Yeah.
And now, what would you say in terms of the Austin music scene? I mean, I know that's where this whole band came out of. Is there a lot of like hard rock music? Is there a lot of like metal bands? Or were you an anomaly out of there?
I think that. So I think that we're not an anomaly in that sense. I think that we have a very cool community. I think that if anything, we're an anomaly because we're a little different than everybody else.
Being a two-piece?
Being the style that we do. I don't think that anybody else kind of does what we do, and that's our unique... Because there's a lot of heavy music. There's a lot of music that I would consider, I want to say it's called stoner rock.
Yeah, that kind of doomy, Sabbathy influence,
but
metal
with lighter
sort of
vocals.
rock
And I think
thing,
we kind of curve that line and do a little bit on the outskirts of that as well. Because I don't know if I necessarily like to 100% associate myself with all of those. Mm-hmm. And I've had a lot of fun playing with other genres. We're very open. We played not too long ago with a goth band in Houston.
Nice.
And they were really nice people. They were from Austin as well. And we had a good time. And we've played with noise bands. We've played with punk bands. We've played with rock and roll bands, and I don't think that there should be any dividers between all these genres. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of... I just didn't want to be pinholed with having to play a certain show with certain bands, and so we try not to stick ourselves in those holes because it's limiting your options to meet really cool people and to meet really cool audience members that you might not think that like your music because they're here to see someone else.
Right.
Like a friend of mine, she went to see our friends in Tarantula Mountain and came out to see us, and she said the first time that she saw us that she kind of blew her away, and we were still really close friends, and it's
just
just
variety
cool.
works better in shows when there's bands that are different. What you consider genre? Do you think variety works or cohesiveness works better when you're going to see a show?
I think there's both on the mindset that it would depend whether or not the headliner is a massive... I think locally, it's so much better of an idea to start mixing your friend groups.
Yeah.
I think maybe once you start building these giant mega bills, and let's just say with Electric Wizard or something like that, I don't think that you would want to put a pop punk band on that bill. But if it's
there's
a
certain aesthetic that a bigger name band is going to bring that people expect. You're like, I don't want to see this open for that.
Exactly.
So that's if you had Wu-Tang Clan open for Dave Matthews, it would be like,
people would be like, that's
I
weird.
might like both, but not now.
It would be a weird thing. So it's works much better on a local level. Yeah. And I think that locally that's a great thing. Because then you get all the homies to come out.
Yeah, and there's not enough of a built-in audience, I'm sure, at a lot of places to be too exclusive. It's like, why not mix everything together, and then you get more of an exposure, you get more interaction between people who might not have thought they'd be digging this or that, because I know that certain music, seeing it live hits you in a different way than if you heard a record,
Yes.
And some things that, I didn't think, maybe I wouldn't be into this, but then when you see someone doing it live, there's a different appreciation that comes. They're like, oh, now I really respect what's happening, because you might not have understood before.
Totally.
And then when you see a band, I'm here for this band, but that other band was really cool too. I didn't know that's how that sound was made. And then people get turned on to a new thing.
And we've had some cool reactions to stuff like that, It's very important to have an open mind with music, and I think that that's what music in general should do, is to just kind of keep you with an open mind to check out some cool stuff that you might not check out all the time.
What's music done for you in your life? What made you want to start playing? What made you say, this is for me?
I think what made me want to play music, bottom line, would be to express myself in a positive way. Mm-hmm. I think I really clutched to music when I was going through my divorce, and then not too long after when my ex-wife passed away, and it was just one of those things where I was like, I can either drink myself to death and just go down this horrible spiral, or I can do something that I've always kind of looked up to as some of my friends and my friend groups do, and I want to do that instead. And I just kind of locked myself away in my house and played my guitar in my basement all the time for 9-10 hours a day, instead of just going out and being depressed. And I didn't want to leave until I understood what I wanted to do. And I think what I want to do with music has always been there for me, even as a child growing up and dealing with a lot of adversity, being one of very few Hispanic children growing up in Georgia, because I've spent a lot of childhood between New York and Georgia. So music has always been something where I'm like, okay, music is not going to be miserable. Music is not going to be mean. It's just going to be what it is. And so I wanted to be able to do that myself and express myself that way instead of hoping that somebody would understand me in a song. And I'd be like, okay, I'm going to just listen to all these new bands and hope that they sound really awesome, and then that's what I'm feeling that I'm
so
going
you were
through.
looking for you got something from music, we're looking for that, but then decide like, what if I create the content myself? Is that kind of like you wanted to put out there the things that you could see music, well, it did it for you in a way, but then you're like, well, what if I put out my own version of that? That was kind of,
I wanted to,
like,
I also wanted to safely express how I felt.
dealing with those difficult emotions, dealing with those
difficult,
frustrated, depression, anxious things. Yeah.
Yeah, just trying
Well, they
to
build up if you don't let them out. And that's like almost like where the perversion happens when you don't have a release, because then it all starts crashing into itself.
And it kind of just like, when I really started getting into music, it was just all these things kind of crashing down at once. Like I had just gotten out of the Navy, and I was deployed for a long time, active duty, and then I got home, and my marriage fell apart, and Sadie passed away, and it was just one of those things where I felt like I was completely out of control with my life, and like I could make healthy choices or I could make extremely unhealthy choices that were so easily done, or I could be
music was the healthy choice.
Yeah, music was the healthy choice, and I think that's cool that it didn't turn out to be terrible.
Yeah.
And like, while I still made plenty of unhealthy choices while playing music, it's
Not
like,
as
at
many.
least it's not this many.
Kind
Found a good balance.
Yeah, a good balance of everything. Yeah.
It's like, you don't know what it could be.
Totally. So, yeah, music to me is something
It's like
that
a
saved
therapeutic
my life.
value.
Yeah, it's therapeutic.
It gives an outlet for some feelings that would destroy a person. I can completely understand it, and that's like a very honorable reason to do it, because
I think that's like the most common thread that we've seen in all of our podcasts with every artist. I mean, it's just music is therapy for everybody.
Yeah.
It's just
I agree. And it should. I think that like this is something that I was saying. I was speaking with some friends the other night. We're dealing with some stuff in Austin where it doesn't really need to be brought up, but bottom line, I guess, is like, you need to love what you do, and you should go out there every day and play the music and give people that feeling. And if it's something that you don't love, then don't do it.
Yeah.
Because there are other people that are chewing at the bone to play in the spots that you
you mean like, say if there's a band who gets billing at a place, but they're kind of like not all that happy about it, and
they're
like,
just
lackadaisical. You stop and let somebody else who's hungrier than you,
or they're
come
like,
in.
we don't have any aspirations to do anything. It's like, that's great that you're playing shows, but you're getting all these amazing spots, and you don't want to tour, and you don't really have any plans, and these are moments where the other bands, there are like 10,000 other people that are more qualified and that want it more. And it's just, sometimes it's disheartening to see people
or jaded about it, like they've got an opportunity and they're kind of pissed
like,
about it for some reason, like it's not enough. And
or they just waste it. Like I've seen a lot of amazing bands never do anything cool. And then they just, I don't know. It's a double-edged sword with a lot of music. It's that you should love it and you should be happy, and like, I know there's a lot of monotony in it, and eventually all these cool shows that I'm like, wow, I'm gonna open up for so and so, or like something like that, are gonna be like, oh, that's great, I'm doing this again. But I don't ever want to go up there, and I don't think I would ever have the lack of integrity to get up on stage and not feel, or at least give off that I want to be there to the people that have come in to see me, because they're the people that are paying me to be there. Like, that's insane to me sometimes to think about, is like how you could go play a show and be like, all right, I only really have to play an hour of music or so. You play like a couple hours of music, and then it's that's the reason you're there, and the people that are staring at you are paying you to do it. And then you could be a complete punk about it. Just like not care, not in punk like in a oi way.
Yeah,
but
not
like,
the good way.
yeah, just
In the
be
ooh way.
just be all jaded, like, oh, I'm too cool for this and that.
What do you think happens that makes people be that way? Do you think it's just
I
it doesn't
think-
turn out to be what they expected it to do for them,
I think that they just
or
feel
they're
like
looking
they're
for more from the
holy-
audience? Or?
Yeah, maybe, maybe a little both. I think maybe like sometimes you can get jaded at what you believe is supposed to be how it is, and then sometimes you can get jaded because it didn't turn out the way that you expected it to be.
So it's an
And then-
expectations thing. If you have
I think
expectations
bottom
for a
line
certain
is
thing,
either way, either side of the coin,
Yeah.
it's all expectations. And
I think in so many things in life, expectations can screw you, man.
It's
'Cause
true,
like,
man.
If you're trying to predict what's going to happen in the future and bet your happiness on that, like,
Yeah.
ooh, that's a
Don't
big
have-
risk, no
yeah.
matter what it is.
if there's one thing I've learned, it's just you know,
Always
just-
be pleasantly surprised. Like, I expected
Yes.
nothing. And
exactly.
It's a little bit
Don't
less.
don't have expectations about people. Don't have expectations about anything.
no
you know?
expectations is the way to be happy. In a weird way, it sounds
Totally.
counterproductive.
It is.
But I think it's true, because if you have too many, then you're always going to be let down, because, well, who's going to know your expectations, and how? And then you're going to be mad at somebody for
Exactly.
no reason,
It's all
because, well, you didn't fulfill my expectation. It's like, well, I didn't know them, and I didn't know that was my job to fulfill them. And I guess, as you were saying with music, if you're expecting it to do a certain thing for you and it doesn't deliver, then it's hard to keep that, like, you know, disappointment away. You know, if a band is expecting a certain, like, adoration or whatever
Yeah.
from the crowd and it doesn't happen, then it's like, well, I wish I never did that. I wish I never
Yeah.
played that. And it's like,
It's been and it's like
why were you doing it? For the adoration, or because, like, you like to do that thing? Like, which one
exactly.
is it? You know?
And then you see some people and they wonder why they don't get that adoration. It's probably because they weren't giving it off.
Yeah,
know?
you
And-
give
and-
off a funky vibe. It's like,
yeah, and you get
turn me on. I dare
Yeah.
you. Like, you gotta try.
yeah, you gotta be like you gotta want to be there. You know, especially in Austin. You know, there's a lot of it's very competitive.
What turns you on when you see a band? When you see a band that you're like, I love this. What's going on? Like, what is it? Are there certain things that you can point to, or is it just the
Yeah.
way you feel?
I definitely think that attitude is very important. And if I see a band that's into it and that loves what they do, then I think that is the most important thing to me, is like seeing a band get up on stage that wants to be there is the most beautiful thing in the world. Mm-hmm. And even if it's their image to, you know, even if it's their like, all right, we're this band and we're just like, our image is that we're too cool. And if they pull that off, rad. Awesome.
How much do you think is important, like the way people, like any kind of presentation in terms of, like, you know, like lighting, or the way they dress, or like how they put the stage?
so much
like,
more important than I thought.
Yeah.
Because now I'm starting to see like a lot of these things. I mean, it's very obvious, but sometimes when you're playing music, you're like, that really doesn't matter. It kind of does.
Yeah.
All the aesthetics do, like lighting and
Sometimes a
everything.
uniform, you know, you see somebody
Yeah.
wearing a police uniform, you automatically treat them in a certain way.
Yeah, you go see
You
this
know?
band called The Cops, and they all just like cops, and it's awesome.
go to
Yeah,
see
you're
them
just like,
again.
oh, that's cool. It's
The Cops.
It's, yeah, they're cool.
But I mean, there's, you know,
but it's-
uniforming is,
yeah.
is a part of it. If you look
Uniform
like you're
and
supposed to be in a
vibe, yes.
band, and then I'm going to
Exactly.
pay more attention. I'm like, hey, you look like you fit the part. And it's
yeah,
like
my friend Jeff Henson from this band Duel, he told me one
are
day
they a two-piece?
they're
Dual, like
four-piece.
dual, like two dual.
No,
like,
no, that'd be cool.
Is it like dual, like with swords, like
No, it's
or
just
like with guns, like 10 paces?
I don't know
in
what
turn.
they're dueling, but they're dueling something.
Yeah.
But he told me like I
Dueling all
not
the posers.
dueling all these posers, dealing with them. He told me, he was like, "Hey man, you shouldn't cut your hair again." And I was like, "You know what? You're right. Short hair, maybe that's not the rock and roll lifestyle. Maybe I need to have some flop and like really let it go and just kind of embrace this musician life." And I had a really awesome conversation with another good friend of mine, Jeff Klein, who's bassist for this band Greenbeard. And he was bassist for
Does he have a
Destroyer
green
of
beard? He
Light.
better with the band name. Like,
Not a single
what a
green
letdown.
beard. Nobody has a green beard in that band.
They just need to have like a green beard on its own.
It
like
upsets
on a stand,
me.
like
It upsets me
over
all
here.
the time. I'm gonna talk to Chance when I get
Or
home.
one,
Buddy.
you should dye your beard green and come out on stage and be like, I am the green beard.
I am the bearded green, sir.
Stealer of thunder from the band
Yeah.
on stage.
Look at me, everybody. I got a green beard. Look at me. Hey. But so Jeff, I was having a conversation with him, and at the time I was working in mental health for Travis County. And he kind of, we were talking about music and everything and touring and everything, and he said, "Hey man, like, how seriously do you want this?" And I told him I want this really bad. And he was like, "Well, there's a lot of things in life you're going to have to sacrifice in order to do these things." And he's 100% right. There's jobs and people and loved ones that I've given up for music. And music is like the most demanding thing in my life. It's something that I have to, I don't even want to sometimes, but I have to, because really what I want is to be happy. Mm-hmm. And this is part of my happiness, and this is my dreams and my goals, and I can't really put anything before that.
Does do the sacrifices that are made, do you see the positive return right away, or is it more just because you sacrifice towards it, it gives you that, I gotta really do this because I've given up these things? Like when the things you give up pile up, is that what drives it? Or do you see like, well, I gave up this and I got this, and I gave up this and I got this?
I think that, I don't know if so you sacrifice so much that it becomes one of those things where you just do it naturally. It's not even like the ends
this is part of the deal.
It's not an ends to the means thing.
Yeah.
It's more of like a, well,
yeah, it's
I
like
want to play music all the time. This is my life. It's like, well, give up my well-paying job to work jobs that give me better hour flexibility, and that's what I want.
Yeah, like if somebody wants to be a pro golfer, like, well, you got to go on there and practice your putts for 8 hours before anybody else gets to the course, so they don't, whatever. I don't know. I'm making that up, but those kind of things. People who are driven about a thing they do, they're doing these weird outside of the box things to be the best at it, and showing up at weird times and putting in,
and it's
effort
hard
in a way that it's like, what? Well, why are you doing that? You can just do this. Like, but I want to do this thing, and to do it, I got to put my blood in the field.
It's all like this big sacrifice. Mm-hmm. But I think the gain is self-satisfaction, and it's not really something that you can measure. And I don't think it's equal at all, because some feelings you get from playing music live will never be able to be.
You can't get them anywhere else.
You can't get them anywhere else. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't. It's impossible. And so there's no value on something that amazing. There's value on, changing my entire life so that I can play music freely without having to be like, I need today off. Can I do this and that? Now I work a job where I'm like, hey, I'm going to go tour this and this week. I'm available these days. Schedule me for work then. Deal. And that's what's going to happen.
Give them your deal up front. Now, do you run into, I'm sure you do, people that don't understand that?
Yeah.
Like,
all the
why
time.
are you doing it? Like, people that just don't get why you would want to live that way? Like, what do you...
Yeah.
How do you handle that? Or do you just say, like, oh, you're not part of my world?
I just don't care. Like, everybody lives their lives differently. And if they don't understand why I do it, I'm sure there's things that I don't understand about their lives.
Yeah.
Like, you can't force anybody to do anything or believe anything. And we're all going to be so varied with our opinions, and even on something as simple as like coffee.
Yeah. Trying to take choices away in that regard.
Exactly. Some people are like, I don't like
I think people would protest more than they would about the president if you said, like, no Dunkin' Donuts, only Starbucks. What?
Yeah, people would lose their minds. So it's like, it's okay if nobody understands why I'm doing it. At the end of the day, I understand why, and that's what matters. It's like, I'm the only one that understands and has to deal with it anyway.
Yeah.
Like,
there's that quote that came from Jimi Hendrix. It might be from the song If 6 Was 9. I can't remember. But he says something like, I'm the one who has to die when it's my time to die, so let me live my life the way I want to.
Yeah.
That says it all right there.
Yeah. That was a great moment there. Dude.
Because it's true, no one else can die for you. So like, who else can live for you then in that way?
And I think that musicians die. It's like 1,000 deaths kind of thing. It's like you go up on stage, and then something goes wrong. Whether it's like you break a string, or your amp explodes, or somebody in the crowd thinks you guys are terrible, or somebody texts you with some
Step
crazy
on your cord
heavy
and pull
stuff.
it out.
Yeah, somebody steps on your cord and pulls it out, or
the bar stiffs you at the end of the night.
Exactly. You don't get paid as much as you want to.
You think it was a great show, but then it doesn't go out. Yeah,
you blow a tire, whatever. There's always some sort of chaos element in live music that you're going to experience, but maybe you don't, and that's great, and you get away with it. And
what keeps you doing it?
What keeps me doing it is that I don't know what else to do, because I should say I don't know what else to do that would give me such satisfaction.
Yeah, there's no other block to fit in that place. I guess it's probably an amorphous space. There's not really a clear defined
it's like
what fits in here. It's like, I don't know what fits in here, but I got to keep trying to fill it in.
Reaching around.
Because I don't want to find out what's going to fill that space otherwise.
Yeah. So like what keeps me doing it is just the sheer will of not wanting to lose this artistic thing that I haven't touched. Like, I mean, I do some other artistic stuff, like I'll do some. I've always been interested in voice acting. Like I dungeon master for Dungeons and Dragons, and I like a lot of the artistic movie stuff, and that's always been fun. Maybe I would dive into that, but really I like music the most, and it's always been in my life. And like I said, music has always been something that I can go to and find comfort in because it's never hurt me or made me feel like I don't belong, or like it's just always been that comfort blanket, where I can wrap myself in music and everything's okay and I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, in a way that the predictability of it, when you have a record that you really love, you can put it on at any time in your life and it's still preserved there the same as it ever was, and it brings you to that feeling that's like so many things are transient, and then when you have a recording that's there that you can put on, brings you back to that same space and feeling.
Totally.
What would you say to people who are interested in starting bands or who are starting out or want to do this thing that you're doing? What would you tell people?
Do it.
Do it. That's
I always say that to everyone. It's like, some people will be like, "Oh, I don't know how to play guitar, but like I'll play something or this and that." And I'm like, just do it. Yeah, that's great. You do it. I'm awful. I'm an awful guitarist.
Yeah.
I don't think that.
I don't think you are, but
I don't think that there's like
I'll let you say that. That's cool.
There's a level of like musicianship that you need to start. I mean, there's certainly like once you start piecing together songs, you're like, that's pretty bad actually. Yeah. But like I think that you should just do it, because who else is gonna do it? And nobody else is gonna do it except you, right? Like in any aspect of life. When somebody always approaches me with like, oh, why should I do this or whatnot? Then do it or don't do it. Like, it doesn't matter to me. Even if it does matter to me, it really doesn't matter. You can tell somebody a million things, and they're the only person that's going to do it.
Right.
And you can't force somebody to do something like that. So if you really have a desire to do it, try it. Yeah. Why not?
But what is there to lose?
Yeah, what is there to lose?
Nothing to lose. Be fearless. That would be the way to say it.
Yeah, be fearless about it, and don't spend too much time. I mean, because I've seen a lot of people that spend so much time on getting their chops up, and then they can't write a song to save their life. And you're like, you're an insanely talented musician, but you've never played in front of an audience, and you've never written a song to completion. Like, what are you doing with are you still... Is it going to be 100 years from now that you're going to release a song?
Right. When you're shit or get off the pot. I mean, poop or get off
exactly.
the
pot. Give me three chords. Give me 3 chords and get up there and do something. Yeah. It's okay. We all have written terrible songs.
Yeah, don't be afraid to take.
I have risk. Songs that I never want to hear again. You know,
I
have songs that I have recorded that I'm like, my stomach makes me sick. Please, nobody hear this. I hope my friends don't hear this.
But isn't it kind of endearing? And when you find artists that you like, and then you find those weird recordings that they had made that you weren't supposed to hear, then you hear them like, okay, I'm not that far. You know, it gives that. There's something about having those imperfect things that I find inspirational when I find them of bands that I like, hearing these like demos or like early shows on YouTube or whatever. You're like, oh, even they kind of suck at a certain period of time. So like, well then, and another
thing about that too is like, for musicians, never to lose hope is something that you should always remember. Is like everybody plays crummy shows.
Oh yeah.
And I've seen bands like they're seriously playing like festivals like Psycho Las Vegas and doing all these awesome festivals in front of thousands of people, and then they'll come to Austin on a weekday and it'll be myself and like 3 other people.
Yeah.
And it's a very real moment where you look up at the stage and these people are amazing musicians that have just played in front of thousands of people, and they come to Austin on an off night and nobody comes out.
Yeah.
A, it's raining or something, or B, nobody just comes out because they don't know who the hell they are.
Yeah, I guess you can't let that get into your head of like,
And
well,
you can't.
You're not good because of this one thing or that one thing.
Because everybody plays those shows. Yeah. Everybody plays in front of 2 people, and everybody plays those shows where you're like, can I get a drink from the bar that I can't see anymore?
Yeah.
Like eventually, all of that will be in your wheelhouse, and you should play it the same.
Yeah, I think you have to have that experience to be doing it for the right reasons. If you're only doing it for the attention, then you're kind of losing half the performance, you know?
Because then it's just like a flaunting kind of like...
Yeah, it's like a stroking yourself on stage. So what's next for Monte Luna? What's going on next?
Next?
What are things people can look forward to here?
For
What
sure.
are you putting out into the world again?
Not next week. 6/11, we have a show with our homies in Destroyer of Light, who are on our record label Argonauta, and we are going to be playing with this band from Alabama called Hexus, and then I believe there's got to be another band on that bill, and I hate myself for not knowing, but I don't know.
Sorry, they can hate you too now.
So they can hate me too now, and they've got video evidence of me completely forgetting their band name.
And that band's probably going to be the most famous out of all of them.
I know they're gonna come back at me.
Remember when that guy forgot us?
Yeah,
Let's bury him.
Yeah, you will never live this down, James. Some people do that.
Yeah.
But
so there's some.
So
shows
we're playing.
coming up?
Yeah, so we're playing the show in Austin, Texas. Our friends Destroyer of Light are just put out their latest album on Argonauta Records. Beautiful, gorgeous vinyl. And they're coming home from Europe. And so we're going to play that show. And then 2 days later, we'll be in Denver at Three Kings to play a show right before Electric Funeral Fest, which is a festival put on by some of our friends in this band, the Munsons. And
I'm guessing it's doom metal because of Electric Funeral by Sabbath.
Electric Funeral. Yeah. So it's going to be some heavy stuff.
Cool.
We'll see a lot of cool friends there.
And the recording's coming up soon, or is that something?
So we've got some cool stuff coming out. We've got a website.
Yeah, tell people where to get in your content,
so check
where
it
to
out.
get in touch with you.
You can definitely.
This is your plugging the stuff.
Here comes my plug.
Ooh.
Yeah. So we've got.
Didn't expect all that. wait! I need to give you a chime for that plug.
Plug. So now I'm gonna plug some stuff. Yeah. So we've got our website coming out, which would I believe be monteluna.com, made by Julia Gannon, a good friend of mine. And she's a great web developer. She's doing this thing called, oh gosh, she's going to kill me. Heavy Network.
A lot of people are going to have a hit after this.
Everybody that's like,
don't worry,
James, make sure you give me a shout out. And they're like, I'm like, oh, no worries, I'll totally forget.
Yeah.
Heavy Network. And Heavy Network is going to be a network about really cool musicians.
Awesome.
And so she's hoping to bring a lot of the music community a little tighter together.
Cool.
And we're kind of like a test dummy website thing to build her portfolio, and it's going to be rad, and I'm really excited because she does phenomenal work. And
let's get her on here sometime.
Yeah, totally.
Maybe a Skype interview.
Absolutely. Yeah, Julie, you should definitely come on this show. But we've got that website, and tying in with that is we're kind of pushing this with our release. So we want to kind of come out the gates like, hey, check it out. We've got a new website, and then we've got this new album, and we've got a music video that's going to be coming out very soon.
Ooh, is there a name for the new album?
Yeah.
I mean, like a reason for it. I mean, is there a name for the new album, or is that going to be secret?
No, so the name of the new album is called Drowner's Wives.
Drowner's Wives?
Yes.
Wives or wives?
Wives,
okay.
Yep. That was it's basically like an album concept that is loosely based upon lore of the series The Witcher. And it's very loosely based on that. I just really like Dungeons and Dragons and that whole thing, so we kind of just wrote songs about wizards and witches and all sorts of cool stuff.
Typical doom metal stuff.
Typical doom metal stuff.
I love the fantasy stuff. I'm rereading Lord of the Rings. I'm almost done.
Excellent.
I read them when I was younger, and I'm rereading it. But I always loved that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Did you do that? Like nerd alert?
Excuse me. We're doing that. The album's going to be coming out October 8th, which is my birthday, and I'll be turning 31. Which is not that old, but I'm excited.
Yeah.
And so I figured, you know what? I'm going to have that one selfish moment in the sun where I'm like, I'm going to release an album on my birthday, and then
there you go.
That'll be great. So we have the music video coming out by this dude, Marco Morales. And Marco has worked with bands like Primitive Man and Inter Arma. And so he's got a really good repertoire, and he was highly recommended to us. And he did this really cool story that I don't want to really ruin it. You can check out the music video.
Leave a little teaser.
A little teaser. But
there we go.
It's not like a music video where we rock out. It's like a full story. Like he just does this cool video over our song.
Mm-hmm.
And so that should be done soon. So we're getting that ready to go on the website, kind of tying things in here. And then that website will be a main platform that you can bounce off to get all of our content. So if you go to Monte Luna, I believe it's monteluna.com, you will be able to get everything we have, or you'll be able to get to the Bandcamp, you'll be able to get to Argonauta Records. If you're not, hopefully we can tie both of them in. So if you bounce from Argonauta, you can come to Monte Luna and vice versa.
Nice, like a launch pad.
Yeah. So like both traffic it'll be much easier for our fans to get to us.
Mm-hmm.
Contacting, merchandise, everything. We want to make sure that we can get in touch with people because that's why we're doing it.
Like, do you have Instagram, Facebook, any of that stuff?
Yeah, we have Facebook. Facebook is Monte Luna, Texas. I think Monte Luna TX. We just changed it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working with this dude Matt Bacon, who's a really rad guy, knows a lot of stuff, and we've been working on our branding. So a lot of things have changed, honestly, within this week. I think.
Oh, cool! So we're kind of at the cusp of a lot of new things.
This is like the cusp of a lot
exciting,
of
man.
cool.
So there's a lot more content coming everyone's way.
Monte Luna stuff coming your way. I think our Instagram is still Monte Luna, Texas. I think everything has been converted to that format. So you'll find us at Monte Luna, Texas, tx.bandcamp.com, and then I think the same as facebook.com/MonteLunaTX/ and then everything but the website will be Monte Luna TX now. So all of our format is just Monte Luna TX or hashtag Monte Luna if you're looking for us on that.
Awesome. So that's where we get all the content.
Yeah. And so all the content will dive into you there. We're gonna start doing some teasers for the album by October. You'll have the full thing. You'll be able to pre-order vinyls before that and pre-order some CDs and tapes. Like we approached the first album, we're probably going to do very limited runs on everything. So if you miss it, you miss it, and
all the more reason to get it right away.
Exactly.
There you
all
go.
The more reason.
Get it on the ground floor. Then you're gonna have this one that'll be worth millions on eBay in 20 years.
Somebody's gonna make way more money than I did on this album.
So any last words you want to leave people with? Last things you want to say about music, what it means to you, why you're just we've talked about so many different things. You don't have to encapsulate it all, but what would you want to leave people with?
Well, one more plug then is that we're coming to Europe the 25th of October. We got our first date in Italy, right outside of Milan. I'm really excited to hear our schedule about that, so that's going to be really fun. But as far as one thing I'd like to leave people with is that they should follow their passions, and that out of all the things I've done in my life, because I feel like sometimes I've lived my life in reverse. I did a lot of serious stuff in my life in the beginning, and now I'm 30. And the seriousness of things is it's so much easier to live now that I've done a lot of heavy things in my life. And I think if there's one thing I want to leave people with, it's that you should really follow your passions no matter what. And I don't want to tell people what their passions are, but just don't sell yourself short with anything. Just do it. Just give it a shot. Yeah. Because it's better to have tried than failed, as the cliche goes, than to have not tried at all. And if there's anything I've learned in life is that this is my one chance to do something cool. And if I look back at myself and say, well, I never did this band thing, then that would be a huge bummer to me. So it doesn't have to be a band thing to you, but just do something that if you, at the end of the day, would consider catching yourself saying, man, I really wish I could have. You should probably do it.
Yeah.
You should probably do it.
Yeah, do that thing, that whatever that nagging thought is in your head.
No matter what. And
What
don't,
if?
Don't take into account any other people's feelings, because there's some things that you will do that are going to hurt other people, even if they're really close to you. But you have to do that for yourself. And if they really love you and care about you, they will understand. So do the things, follow your heart and do the things you love. And if people give you that love back and respect what you do and the sacrifices you've had to make, even if it hurts them, then they truly love you and that they're truly great people.
Dude, you gotta chime yourself out with that one. That was like the most like philosophical comment yet on this podcast.
Namaste, man.
Next stage, we had James Clarke in from Monte Luna. That was a beautiful
thank you for having me,
summation.
guys. This is
Thank you so
awesome.
much for coming all the way from Austin just for little old us. We know that's the only reason you came.
It's true.
But chime yourself out, man. Beautiful.
Great job.
That's for Joe.
Yeah. That was it. That's the only thing I gave for Joe.
All right. Love y'all. We'll see you next time. Or you'll see us next time. Bye.